All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the March National Pilot City Call. Just to remind everyone that these calls are being recorded. What we do is we try to post them on our NBSCRM YouTube site after they're over. So if you're not able to attend or you have a colleague that's not able to attend, you can always direct them to our YouTube page. So please mute yourself while the speaker is speaking, but it is open. You're available to open your line up and ask questions. This is a discussion forum rather than a presentation one. Our standing agenda is, again, if you're new to the call, please unmute yourself and introduce yourself. If not, then I'll just keep on moving on. The next part of our agenda is we get updates from our pilot sites on active and completed pilots. So we'll hear from New York, North Carolina, Georgia, and Wisconsin. And then we'll try to get some updates from other states that have added some of the newer conditions to the RUSP. And then we also have a few updates from New Steps and NBSCRN. And if you have to clock out early, our next call will be on April 1st. So I'm going to start with the New York team. I know that Colleen stated she's already on the call. So Colleen, do you want to give us an update from New York? On the red was the update from last month.
Sure. So I'm going to start with SMA.
Okay.
We've screened about 517,000 infants and referred 27 infants, all of whom were confirmed to have SMA. Of those, 15 had 2 copies of SMN2, 8 had 3 copies, 2 had 4 copies, and 2 had 5 copies. So we started out using qPCR for our SMN2 copy number analysis, but we're now using digital PCR. So we are able to distinguish the 4 versus 5 copies of SMN2.
So, and are you, I'm sorry, Colleen, I just had a quick question. So are you, sure. What digital PCR method are you using? What platform?
The Bio-Rad.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead. You can.
Okay, so I'll move on to ALD. Okay. And we've screened about 1.6 million infants for ALD.
Is it 1.36?
And we've had 1.6.
Okay, 1.6.
Yeah. We've had 124 referrals. About even 63 males, 61 females. And we've had 37 confirmed ALD diagnoses and 10 Zellwegers. Okay, Pompe. We've screened about 1.5 million. We've referred 180 infants. 10 of those have had infantile onset. "46 of them had 2 pathogenic variants, and we presume will have late onset Pompe disease. Another 37 had 1 pathogenic and 1 VU. So we're calling those possible late onset. And there were 71 carriers that were referred. And MPS 1, we've screened 517,000. referred 25 infants. And there were 3 that had one pathogenic variant and one variant of uncertain significance. 2 of those had elevated GAGs, and all 3 were closed as possible disease. And the remaining 22 are likely only carriers. That's it. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Colleen. Do we have any questions on the call?
Colleen, this is May. I want to quick confirm that based on your SMA, looks like it's about 1 in 19,000. Am I right?
Yep, that's correct. And that's
Okay.
pretty much what we've been running.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks again, Colleen, for your update.
You're welcome.
I'm going to move on to the North Carolina team.
Jennifer, before you move, based on the question about the SMA prevalence, do we have any composite figures from all the other programs together to see how that would compare with New York, which I imagine has the most or nearly the most of observations?
Yeah, I know that Mary Schroth presented some data in our October call of last year, I believe, September, October, the fall of last year, where she collected a lot of the data from the other programs. And it seemed like New York is definitely has a lower incidence than the other states. I think Mary is on the call, or is someone from Cure SMA on the call?
I'm on the call, Jennifer.
Yeah,
Hi.
do you want to comment?
Yes. So currently there's 34 states that are screening. We just added Montana just was added on March 1st. Yay, Montana. And of the 34 states that are screening, we've heard back from 25 of those states. And when we average the number of babies screened versus the positives, the preliminary incidence is 1 in 14,000. The incidence for SMA ranges anywhere from 1 in 23,000, which is Arkansas, to 1 in 5,000 in Kentucky. Colorado also has, Colorado's 1 in 6,000 approximately. So the range of incidences that we're seeing so far, and again, this is preliminary data, is quite large. So, and I just want to thank the states that are reporting to us, responding to our request for information. We greatly appreciate that because we're really trying to understand newborn screening and SMA.
Hey, Mary.
Yes.
I'm Ryan Colburn here. I'm collecting similar information in Pompeii, and when we're putting it into a model that puts the incidence that we're seeing state by state and country by country against sample size, we are seeing a convergence that seems to be more dependent on sample size than it does in differences. So I'd be happy to take a run at that approach with your data. If you want to follow up offline, I can send you a chat with my info.
Sure, that'd be great. And we can talk.
Let's party.
And there was also another question, Colleen, in the chat box as far as the ALD carriers. So when the ALD is the infant is referred to as a carrier, I mean, if the infant is classified as a carrier, is that after referral? Is that after sequencing, or is that?
Are you talking MPS 1 or ALD?
ALD, I'm sorry.
You mean the females?
The females, yes.
Those also get referred to the specialty care centers.
They do get referred to the specialty care. Okay. And then they're classified as a carrier at that state.
I mean, to look for the males within the family.
Gotcha.
All right. Question for Tina from California. For SMA, do you know if the babies with 3 and 4 copies are being treated?
They are.
So 3 and 4, but not 5, or is that a leading
Um,
question?
The last we knew, they were holding on the 5.
Okay.
But we don't always get updated information.
Thank you.
And this is Tracy from California. Yeah, Mary, that's kind of the recommendations, right? I mean, it's gone through 4, right?
Exactly. You beat me to the punch there, Tracy. I was just trying to start to chat, but yes. So the most recent recommendations were published in the Journal of Neuromuscular Disease regarding treatment related to copy number. And the recommendations are to treat through infants 1 to 4 copies of SMN2 and to monitor the type 5. So that's a consensus statement.
In the, Mary, do you know about in the different registries out there? Are we seeing a lot more infants with 5 copies? Are we seeing any infants with more than 5 copies?
That is a great question, Jennifer. And honestly, it's based on the technology available regarding SMN2 copy number reporting. You know, there's only a few states that are doing the digital PCR, the ddPCR. Wisconsin is doing it now, and now New York is doing it. And commercially, it's not available. It's still 4+. So we don't have a lot of information.
Okay.
But thank you.
Do you have any more questions for the New York group? All right, Colleen, just hold tight just in case, but I'm going to move on to the next state. Okay, is anybody, I think I saw some people from North Carolina on the call.
Yep, I'm here. This is Kate.
Hey, Kate.
Let's see, we have screen, so SMA, right?
DMD and SMA, if you want to provide them for both.
Yeah, SMA, let's start
Okay.
with that. 13,167. We have 3 screen positives. 2 of those were confirmed. 1 with 2 copies, 1 with 3 copies of SMN2. And 1 false positive, which turned out to be a heterozygote and eventually diagnosed with the Schwachman-Diamond syndrome. Then DMD, 2,500 babies screened. We have 19 screen positives, and 2 of those had positive sequencing, confirmatory sequencing so far.
And that's for the dystrophin gene, or is it for another?
It's a panel.
It's so 2 positive for are they for genes on the neuromuscular dystrophy panel?
Correct.
And can you just remind folks, like, when you guys started the Duchenne screening again, Kate?
So we started in November,
Mm-hmm.
and we went back and included babies born or enrolled in the study in October.
Mm-hmm.
So you can count it since October.
And I'm guessing the other screen positives are in process for.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of them have been negative on the panel, and some are in process.
So you do have some false.
Yes, I don't have the number right now, but yes, we do.
Yeah, it would be interesting next call if we could hear more about that. What might be potential causes for the false positives?
Well, we set the cutoff really low.
Oh, okay, okay.
specifically to catch, any other reasons for elevated CKMM. So some of those we know had some birth trauma that might have contributed to it. And we'll be adjusting the cutoffs in a couple months.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for Kate on the North Carolina pilots for SMA and DMD?
Hi, Jennifer. This is Mary Schroth with Cure SMA. I recall that North Carolina was planning to implement full screening, permanent screening for SMA this quarter. Is that still the case?
So I'm not at the state, but they definitely are working toward that. I do not have information about whether there is a go live date yet.
Thank you.
This is Kristen. I can answer that question from what I know. I had a meeting with the state last week, and the planned date is April 1st to initiate that with the state lab. And we're in the processes of developing all those protocols. And they're aiming for April 1, but they're not very optimistic about that. So it might be pushed further. But the plan is April 1st.
And Early Check is still going to continue to do the screening until the state can do full population. Is that still the plan?
No, we are done at the end of March.
Okay, sounds good.
I will say, to add to that, though, I do think the state is going to retrospectively go back potentially to those babies that might be missed in the gap. At least that was what the last I heard. So we're hoping to not have any gap in screening.
No, that's good to know.
This is Mary Short. That's curious to me because the early check was through an opt-in process.
That's correct.
So, retrospectively, there's a lot of babies that were not part of that.
It would just be retrospective to the end of early check date. Unfortunately, yeah, you're correct. Since it was a voluntary program, not everyone would be screened. But those that would want screening obviously would pick up. But you're very correct. There would be many babies, obviously, that would be missed if they didn't opt into early check.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. So it will go back to when early check stops.
Yes, that's correct. And that's my understanding based on our last conversation with them.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the North Carolina team? Thanks, Kristen, and thanks, Kate, for giving us that update.
Sure.
I'm going to move on to Georgia. I know Bill and Angela are both on the call. I'm not sure if Trish is on the call as well.
Hey, this is Angela. I can give you a few numbers here. Sorry, I was just looking at some kids. So for SMA, total, beginning from our pilot to today, we have 15 diagnosed kids. And I do not have all of their SMN2 numbers for you today, but they are all being treated one way or another, or unable to be treated. ALD.
Angela, may I ask a quick question?
Please go for it.
So for SMA, did you have in your pilot? Did you guys have some false positive infant in your pilot as well?
We did. It's been we had. I'm sorry, I can't remember. It was like 11 or 12, something like that, false positives. We had a large number, and we continue to have a large number of what we call inconclusives. That we don't, I don't know how you want to classify that. We don't say necessarily that's abnormal, but it was inconclusive, meaning the RNase-P was abnormal. We get a lot of those jointly, SMA and SCID, since they're multiplexed. And we just ask for a new sample. That happens a fair bit, but I wouldn't necessarily categorize those as false positives. but we don't get, for some reason, we don't get a lot of false positives now for SMA. I don't know. I think machines know when it's something new and they spit out different fun things. And then, because it's just not been an issue more recently, usually they're either inconclusive or they're really abnormal.
Okay, so this was the more closer to when you guys first started in the pilot phase.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to go back and look at those dates. I just remember writing that up in the report at the end of our pilot. Yeah. But yeah, all the other kids either were so severe that they died or they're getting treatment mostly through CHOA, and we have kids in a variety of treatment plans, nusinersen or gene therapy. So, and some of them had gone out of state to get treatment before we had that up and running here in Atlanta, but now they can get treatment here, which is great. Let's see. I'm just going to jump over to ALD really quick. And since we restarted, and for the love of God, I cannot remember when we restarted ALD, maybe middle of last year, maybe May, I want to say maybe May of 2020. Since then, we've had 4 diagnosed cases of ALD, all boys, and 2, sorry, I'm trying to look across lines, 2 kiddos with Zellweger. No, 1 kid with Zellweger. The other 3 were from the pilot, so yeah. So yeah, 4 ALD kiddos and 1 kiddo with Zellweger since we brought ALD back up. Pompe and MPS1, we are talking about going live mid-ish April. So we're just working on getting that all up and running and situated. Our PUCD pilot, we just restarted. We've been going about 2 weeks now. And it's a little up and down. It's a little up and down. We're still working on that. And we're watching that closely. We're watching that very closely. We're still getting a fair number of false positives, but at the same time, we need the data from those cases to be confirmed as false positives, and we'll throw them into the CLEAR tool, and hopefully that will improve that situation. And for everybody who doesn't know, we're not necessarily running a separate test or doing anything special in terms of laboratory testing, but it's more of taking the analytes that we have and running them through CLEAR tools to decide who actually needs follow-up for PUCD. So yeah, we just, it's hard where there aren't a lot of diagnosed cases. There's not a lot of data surrounding that in CLEAR, but I'm really hopeful it will get there. And homocystinuria, oh yeah, go ahead.
So just one quick question. I'm not sure if you know the answer, but for your PUCD pilot, so I understand that you're running the NeoBase 2 kit. And the positive ones are going on into the CLEAR tool. Is there any second tier testing method that you guys are doing after?
So we actually, we're actually running everybody through the CLEAR tool.
Oh, everyone is going through CLEAR.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're running everybody. So there's no second tier test that way. We just take all the results, throw them through CLEAR, and anybody who comes out in the 2 highest risk categories, we're following up on right now.
Yeah, there's no separate second tier test. You mean look for actual glutamine concentrations or something like that? No, there's nothing. The glutamine and the lysine come out the same. So we're hopeful based on the diagnosed cases that we were able to obtain from California that this is going to be informative, but we're used that information and went live, and we're getting more than 1 positive a week. So we'll see. I suspect that most of those are going to be false positives. Hopefully we can improve the CLEAR tool and we can get down to something acceptable, because it's not right now.
Yeah, and it's kind of, again, we're kind of in the early phases of restarting that. So hopefully we'll know more next time we all talk. And homocystinuria is still very much kind of in the planning phase or kind of getting it up and running. But I think we're hopeful to get that pilot a little off the ground end of April, early May is kind of what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, we got a lot of things that are going on at exactly the same time with the lab. So we're trying to prioritize which goes first. We're in the meantime, we're trying to get known dried blood spots from known cases of remethylation disorders or homocysteinuric cases, any disorder that has elevated homocysteine. And we are particularly desperate to get pyridoxine responsive homocystinuria because those are generally missed by newborn screening by everybody. So we want to get those cases so we can run the newborn screening on them and put them into CLIA to make the tool more useful.
Yeah, so if anybody has any dried blood spots on those confirmed cases, give me a shout. We would love to reach out to your patients.
Anybody have any questions for Georgia? Any comments? Volunteering any dried blood spots to them? I know that I'm guessing the incidence is quite, it's very rare to get those spots for any program.
Yeah. We're working with the patient support group to identify the patients, and hopefully some of those patients are from states that store their blood spots, as opposed to the less enlightened ones that destroy them.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to Wisconsin and see if May has any updates for us on some of the newer conditions or projected the plan that you're planning to add to your state panel, Wisconsin's panel.
Sure. Yeah, I look at your notes there. So Wisconsin's screening for SMA is to start October 2019. So we are just a little bit 1 year over, about 80,000 babies screened. We identified 7. Actually, today I have a new case. I don't know 7 anymore, but confirmed it's 7 cases. And so we are in the 111,000, I guess, the incident rate. In terms of a couple of things I perhaps want to update to people, and is yes, so we from get-go, we are screening the algorithm, including the SMA2 copy numbers assessment. And people sometimes are wondering, like, okay, you adding this, or did you take a longer time? So actually not. So for our 7 cases, 5 of them was reported at the day 3 of life. So they're collected 24, get out lab. So that's, and then we have 1, 2, one is 5, one is 6 days. So then I look at it, but it's early on when I said it's you perhaps not surprised because they're weekend, Friday, Saturday situation. So we don't do the SMA assay, scheduled assay on the Saturday, on Sunday. So we kind of modify our procedure a little bit. Even we don't do Saturday and Sunday, if we have some preliminary data indicated that, and we're going to finish them. Doesn't matter. We have people come in. So ever since it's like 3 days as of now. That didn't seem the issue with us. Another unique our program, just share with the colleagues here, not only laboratory as the part of SMA2 copy numbers, also lab also confirm the SMN 1 and 2 use the digital PCR after being referred to the physician, and physician will collect another sample, send to laboratory. At this time, we'll do the digital PCR for both SM1, SM2. And we try, because actually I don't want to get details, and the process has been well received. And as Mary talked about in the commercial level right now, it's not really fully embraced this digital PCR. So they're interested in their report of 4 and greater. And we know we can do 2 different. And this is 7 cases. Another thing last time I didn't share with you is the treatment dates. I have this now because I put together for the manuscript. Actually, our paper is under review right now. The categories previously I reported have 2 cases with 2 copies SMN2, 2 cases with 3 copies SMN2, and 2 cases with 4 copies SMN2. The newer case is 3 copies SMN2. And for the because the newer case is just last week, so the treatment I haven't get back from the information from clinical yet. But the other 6 cases I can share with you when they get a treatment. The treatment, 5 cases I think I reported all received Zolgensma, is gene therapy. And the treatment on that schedule, the days is 11, 15, 18, 19, 30. That's the days of life that received the treatment. We do have 1 case received Spinraza. The reason is twice test on the AAV9 antibodies high. Because of that, also, the delayed treatment a little bit. So that treatment was happened at day 57. So overall, we are pretty happy with where we are, and all the cases from our program reported has been confirmed, and we do not have any inconclusive cases either. So that's, I move on to.
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
So I have 2 questions actually. My first question is since you're doing the copy number assessment in-house with digital PCR, how many specimens are you actually reflexing to the copy number analysis to digital PCR?
I do not remember exactly, a little bit more than 7. The reason we know that is because we changed the procedure, because before we said every single one we will do the digital PCR. Then now we have more experience, very confident when we say SM10 on the real time, and we don't necessarily, well, let's do PCR. So you ask the copy number SM2, right? Then 7, only 7, because if they don't have SM10, we would do the SM2 copy numbers assessment.
Okay. And my second question is, I guess, I'm not sure if you probably know this, but it sounds like you did for the 1 case that's with Spinraza, they've done the AAV9 titer twice and it was still too high. So are they trying to get into the gene therapy? Are they trying to switch over from Spinraza to gene therapy eventually?
Yes, that's the plan. So they will continue monitor that eventually they want, if the titer come down, they will still consider it to do the Zolgensma.
Okay.
One more question, May. This is Bob Courier. Have you had do you have any information on the effect of gene duplication of SMN1?
No, we haven't encountered that yet. No, but I think I'm not so sure we would know. Because
people who do carrier testing for it know about this phenomenon, that particularly in sub-Saharan African populations.
Okay, yeah. So we do have a carrier study ongoing, but our target is the Amish community, and I do believe in that population, the exon 7 deletion is the one. So I'm not foresee we will see in our cohort. So we use we do the carrier screening. This is a CDC Foundation funded project. And we don't use real-time PCR. We just use a digital. And it's our laboratory developed assay, so it's pretty cheap.
Okay.
And any
So,
updates from Pompeii adding to, or are you still going through the rulemaking process?
yes, the COVID-19 is not helpful. And my understanding is sometimes next year. I don't want to say that because I feel like too far away. But it's going, it's moving. And also the news is I just went through with our metabolic committee, and we report our asset development on validation on the XLD. And the method, I think, I don't know any state right now use this method yet. It's a flow injection negative mode. I do know some state use LC and negative mode. So our marker is 24 LPC and 26 C26 C24 LPC, and we are not so sure. Actually, we will have a molecular piece for two reasons. With this method, we are confident to have a ISS0 or few false positives, and also the genotyping in the LD, we know the predicted value is not there. So we haven't decided we really will have a molecular piece or even we have an assay in house. So that's what I have. And oh yeah, we report this. I should say important is we are started a nomination process in Wisconsin. Is a parallel like a federal. We still needed to go independent nomination process through our advisory group and take to the government office, then start a rulemaking process. So it will take a while.
Do you have any other questions for May Baker? Well, thank you for the update. Very informative information. And it kind of helps me transition to my next slide too, May. So I just wanted to take a step and just remind people of the status of the conditions that have been added to the RUSC and how states are doing. So these calls started out was doing SCID screening, and now all the states have started screening for SCID now. So you can see here this timeline of how many different conditions have been nominated for the RUSP. But I guess the most recent, which is not very recent, but the ones that have been added lastly to the RUSP have been the ones that we have been talking about during this call, which is Pompe disease, MPS I, XALD, and SMA. So I just wanted to see the status, just to remind everybody the status. And Mary Schroth has already shown me my slide is out of date. I collected some of the data from the New Steps website and throughout the NBSCRN call. So if the data is a little off, maybe I need to update the sources. But for Pompe disease, Pompe was added to the RUSP in 2013. And from the data I collected, there's 25 states in the District of Columbia that are screening for this condition. And then MPS I added, I believe MPS I and XALD were approved by the Secretary around the same time. So both in 2016, MPS I, according to my data source, 23 states in the District of Columbia, XALD, 19 states in the District of Columbia. And as Mary has stated, my number is off for SMA, at least that's what I know of, it was added in 2018, that's correct, but I think she stated that there's about 34 states that are added to the RUSP, and one's coming in the coming months as well this year. So the reason why I have this slide is just to let all the programs, all the states that call into this, as we are interested in hearing, from you, see what your status is as far as screening. We want to hear how you're doing, if there's any troubles that you're running into. And if you're not screening, we want to also hear from you and see what your plans are to start screening, or if there's any barriers that you're running into to add it to your RUFs. So with that said, I would like to open up the call and see if we can get any discussion from any of the other states. I believe last month we heard from South Carolina, and they intended on adding MPS 1 and Pompe disease at the end of February. So if someone from South Carolina, I think we heard from Tanya last month, but if someone from South Carolina is on the phone and can let us know if they started and how they're doing, I'd greatly appreciate it. If not, we'll open it up to everybody else. But I'll see if anybody from South Carolina is on the phone first. And Mary just corrected me. She said 29 states are permanently screening, and we have 5 states with pilot studies. So does anybody else on the call want to give their update on, how they're doing with, if they have plans to start screening for Pompe, MPS 1, XALD, or SMA? If you don't feel like unmuting yourself, you can always enter that information into the chat box as well.
Hello, Jennifer, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so my name is Vinny. I'm a scientist here in the Illinois Department of Public Health. I could give some update on our end for our SMA screening.
Sure.
So we went live with it back in June 29th of 2020. So it's been about half a year, a little over half a year since we've been screening, and we found 10 positives so far, which I guess is a lot. I guess the one thing I wanted to discuss with everyone in this group was, and this is something we talked to CDC about, is with the assay, what we've been finding here in Illinois is that sometimes we'll get some results or some observations where the CT value is really weak. Like obviously with this assay, and this is like the CDC design that we're using, where typically you either see no signal, as that would denote a positive, or a strong PCR signal, right? And historically, for the vast majority of our specimens, that's what we see. However, every now and then, what we are also seeing is that we're getting these like weak CT values of like 37.5, 38, and they're real curves. And so what we've been doing so far here in Illinois is that we're calling them as positive because they don't really fall into the category of true negative, of true normal, where we routinely see CT values of like mid-20s, mid 25, 26, 27, but they're not positive for SMA. It's not absent of signal. There's some weak CT signal that's present in the assay. And what we found is that when we've reported these as positive, every single one of these cases, interestingly, upon diagnostic follow-up, they were completely normal, thankfully. However, what was interesting so far was that they also just had one copy of SMN1. It was basically heterogeneous for it, which was which we thought was interesting because theoretically this assay shouldn't be able to detect carriers, right? It's either absence or there's presence. So I wanted to know if other states were seeing that observation where they were also seeing kind of weak PCR signals with when they were screening for this, and how they were handling that. Are they reporting those out as kind of potential positives or borderline? However you're wording it, because that's we're seeing that in Illinois. We've seen about 5 of those cases now here. And I know we've had discussions with several hospitals and clinicians about that, because they were kind of interested as to why we were actually calling this as positive when diagnostically, they're completely normal. So I kind of just wanted some feedback from the community about that.
And just to one clarification before I open it up, these are samples, newborn screening samples that you're screening. This is not the CDC, like any quality control material or
Correct. Yeah. So when
okay.
so when we so we did all when we were doing our validation, we obtained control material from CDC that actually had was confirmed for 1 copy of SMN1, and that obviously came out as completely normal when we were doing our validation assay. So for what it's worth.
So may I ask a follow-up question? This is May.
Go ahead, May.
First, could you tell us how many babies you screened? You have 10 positive identified. Sounds like 5 of them is a false positive.
Yeah, so I don't have the exact numbers on me if I just jumped on this call. But yeah, roughly it was 10 or 11 that we called out as positive, and 4 and 5 of them, and again, forgive me that I don't have the exact numbers here, were these so we're calling this as kind of these gray zone positives, just because they have this weak amplification, but they're not, they're just observationally, they don't fit the criteria of being completely normal as far as the CT value is concerned.
So did you, I don't know what's your primer, because we already know have a primer issue. So if you use the intronic primer, you perhaps need to take a look. And Taiwan reported experience of false positive because the polymorphism there could potentially, so you may want to look at that.
Yeah, so this is the CDC design, the one that the improved version of the Taylor et al. Paper.
Okay, then the correction has been made.
Yeah, so we're using that design, correct?
Okay, and the second part is, I think you and I have exchanged, right? Did you see the not just see the amplification plot, how about the multi-component part? Did you see that too? Did you look at that too?
I did not look at that, no, it didn't actually occur to me.
I think you maybe find it helpful.
Okay, I'll look at that as well, just kind of double check.
Yeah, I think the important is like, I think you are very experienced and you said all the right things. Like not only you see the signal, the application looks like real too, but just a weak signal.
Exactly.
So I think I would take a look on that, and also we can offline talk a little bit, and we can exchange samples to see what it looks like.
Sure.
This kind of thing.
For general reference, I would expect Illinois to have had about 113,000 births since June 2020.
Yeah, we roughly get 160 per year, 160K per year. So that's probably in line with what we've screened so far, yeah.
So 100, like around, call it 110, Jennifer, maybe for the note.
So if this is the case, you have a 5 true case, your rate is more like New York, right? 1 in 20?
Yeah, so yeah, the last case was actually, interestingly, we diagnosed back in, I think it was November, or this, I'm sorry, it was January. And it was actually twins, unfortunately, but we were able to obviously screen them. So I think that brought it up to 6. And again, I completely apologize. I came into some prepared. I mean, I didn't know we were talking about that, but it was about 5 or 6 true cases, and then 4 or 5 these gray zone positive that you were calling out.
And can I just ask a question follow-up as well? So these gray zone positives, they're consistently repeating with this elevated amplification?
Yeah, so the way our workflow works is that we do an initial screen, which is an N of 1, and then if that flags as positive, we obviously then do a confirmation, which is an N of 3, and for each one of these gray zones, like reproducibly, those 3 replicates are in the 36, 37, 38 CT range. And again, the RNA-seq values look fantastic. We multiplex this with SCID, and the TREC values look fantastic. It's just weak SMA amplification for whatever reason, and I don't know why.
But as you said, I don't know all of them, but it's also is a carrier, right?
I'm sorry?
So you said that they have one copy, SM1?
So yeah, so interestingly, when we followed up with the with our with the specialist, they've all confirmed that yeah, there's one copy of SM1, and obviously it's just kind of a small sample size, so you can't really say one way or the other. But I just thought it was a really interesting observation that just so happened that all of these gray zone positives we're calling out had this other thing associated with them.
Yeah, it's why I ask you how many baby you screening, because that's cannot explained by only carrier status. But I think if I can guess now, is it's kind of maybe first your carrier, you have one copy, you are pretty more vulnerable. If you have any additional things that make this assay not robust enough, you may in this situation. So yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely something keep in mind for sure.
Do we have any other comments on this? Has anybody else seen where occasionally they have a false positive that turns out to be, that has this high amplification? Or do we have someone that's a false positive, it turns out that they are identifying carriers with their assay? Some of their screen positives have turned out to be carriers.
Yeah, so our false positive was a carrier and had this blood disorder that we think might have played a role in that too. But our value was somewhere around 27, just above 27. So it wasn't as high as you're describing. It's still pretty low. Our cutoff is really low, but it was interesting that we also saw a similar result on a repeat specimen. That ended up being an onset because of our NISP, but it was very, very reproducible in both specimens and in retest as well.
Theoretically, this assay, I don't know if I use the term right, but I just want to make a point. Compared with the tracker assay, it's less vulnerable, if I may, because tracker assay, you base on the copy numbers. So you set the threshold cutoff kind of makes sense. I think people need to keep in mind, if you say you're going to have the cutoff, basically you said, I define the threshold, this one I treat as SM10. Because if the interesting thing is theoretically it should be 0, but we know sometimes non-specific things can pop up. But I think we need to be careful, the concept will not change. So I think it's why very interesting, I hear what you say is, we said cutoff, so 27, we said is screening positive, otherwise, end up as a false positives. But if you use the concept of screening, even you have a special situation because the sample quality is not ideal because you have a low white cells. But if you stick with the principle, track 0, I said it wrong, SM10, I think maybe make your life a little bit easier, I think. But if you said, I'm going to use the RNSP as the threshold for both tracker assay and SMA assay, then you will have a lot inconclusive, because when you have the things not a crystal threshold for you set up for tracker assay, you basically say the sample is it's unsatisfactory. So I think when you make this decision, you maybe need to keep all this into the consideration. I hope I said it makes sense. And for Illinois, I really encourage you not only look at the application plot, look at the multi-component.
Yeah, I'll definitely take a look at that for sure. And I guess the only other thing I would add is that we're also planning on doing SMN2 quantification in Illinois. So we recently purchased the digital droplet PCR instruments, and hopefully we'll get that up and running sometime this year. Cross our fingers.
Oh, that would be so helpful.
That's what I was just about to say.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything yet because in our program, if I encounter situation, I'm not struggling with this. I'm just do the digital PCR SM1.
Yeah.
I immediately know there. So if you have this, you can use it as, yeah.
Yeah.
As a backup way to confirm the results from the first one, especially tricky ones that where it's a, you know, it's a gray zone. So
yeah, so hopefully that will help us, you know, clarify a lot of those specimens, and also help, you know, with the true positives as well, for the, you know, for treatment purposes.
well, we're coming close. Thank you so much for your update. But we're getting close to the end of this hour, so I wanted to make sure we get in a few announcements in before we end the call. Is someone from APHL on the phone?
Yes, but I have to go quickly because I have a call.
Sure.
So we have two upcoming events. We have a hot topic webinar, which is scheduled for March 23rd. And for that webinar, we're going to focus on cleaning methods for pipette tips. So we sent information about that earlier today. And if you want to register for that, please do so. And if you have any questions for the moderators, you can email me or Funke with those questions. And then the next slide. So we're also planning a new disorders meeting for August 25th and the 26th. We're going to host that in collaboration with the short-term follow-up work group. So we're still in the planning phase for that. So we'll have more details about that in the upcoming weeks. So thank you.
Thank you, Kashia.
Bye.
And the one update from NBSTRN, again, we had a presentation last month about our new website. So please visit nbstrn.org. There's multiple places on the website where you can sign up. We encourage your participation. Since the last meeting, we have over 100 people that have signed up. 29 registrants were from state NBS programs from 22 states. So we encourage those states in gray, if you could please visit, if you're a program on this call, please visit our website and sign up. We would like to have participation of all states. There's one of the tools where it gives information about each state program, and we'd like to get feedback from everybody as well on that tool. So again, the web address is nbstrn.org. I also wanted to say that since we are all on Zoom calls, we've had a lot of international people that register from our colleagues in Canada and Ireland and Italy and Spain and Turkey as well. So we are glad to have everybody's participation. And again, visit us on one of our social media outlets as well as our website. And the next call is going to be on April 1st. If you guys have any feedback for me about this meeting or any topics that you should suggest that we should talk about, please send me an email, or you can send Amy Brower an email as well. And with that, I will end the call. And oh, I see Iowa gave an update to Iowa screened since July 2020, and they're 24,000 infants, one screen positive with 5 copies, considering oral therapy. So thanks, Kimberly, for that update. And thank you, everybody, for joining the call today. See you next month.